Hey, what's going on everyone? Greg here, and I've been using the iPhone 11 ever since it was released, and now that we're in 2020, I thought I should provide an updated review with some more information that we didn't have when the iPhone 11 initially launched, and if you should still consider this phone in 2020. So the iPhone 11 is a no-surprise design that borrows a lot from the iPhone XR. In fact, on the front, it's identical to its predecessor, with the only real big design change being the bigger squared-off camera housing on the back of the phone. This controversial design decision at the time seems to have been one of the biggest overblown reactions, as after using the phone for 4 months now into 2020, the design has never really bothered me. And I actually like the way it looks, especially with the contrasted glossy green glass back with the matte camera bump. And while I must say that I do like having the option for a green phone, I must say that I do prefer the more bold and vivid colors of the iPhone XR series when you compare them against the iPhone 11. I mean, seriously, how great would a bright, vivid green iPhone 11 look? I hope we see Apple return to this more vivid option when the 12 rolls around next September. Now, one of the bigger questions I usually get with the iPhone 11 series, and as well for the iPhone XR series, is how does the LCD display hold up, and is this still a good choice for 2020? And that's because I think most people who are in the market for an iPhone 11 are comparing it against the more expensive version, the iPhone 11 Pro and the iPhone 11 Pro Max, and one of the main differences between both of those phones is the front display. Now, the 11 does have thicker borders than the Pro. This is because it uses an LCD display that requires backlighting rather than an OLED panel where the pixels are able to be lit up individually. And while everyone is going to prefer the thinner bezel design of the Pro, in day-to-day use, the thicker border has never actually really bothered me, because when I'm looking at my content, my eyes tend to just focus whatever I'm looking at. The LCD display itself is still what I consider a good display, and if I put it side by side with the Pro model, it can be hard to tell the difference at a normal viewing distance when looking at things like the home screen. Now, that's not to say the display is equal to the Pro's, because it's not. The Pro's display offers a better contrast, brightness, and yes, a higher resolution. The main advantage of the Pro's display, though, doesn't come from browsing Twitter or social media, but when watching HDR content. And this benefit was only made apparent to me more recently as I started to watch more HDR content on my phone, including one of Jonathan Morrison's video on the Pro Display XDR, which is in HDR. Now, even though we are starting to get a lot more HDR content with streaming services like Netflix and Disney+, HDR content is still not what I primarily view on my device. That's not to say that's the only benefit of the OLED display. There are other advantages as well, including the black levels, which the iPhone 11 just simply can't match. This becomes really apparent when watching videos, where the Pro's black levels are so deep that they appear to be part of the phone's upper housing, whereas on the 11 you can clearly see the separation between the display and the upper notch. Now, while I do appreciate the increased brightness, contrast, and black levels of the iPhone 11 Pro display, that's not to say the iPhone 11 has a bad display, and as I switch between these devices a lot, I don't really feel like I'm missing much when I'm going between my iPhone 11 or my iPhone 11 Pro Max, so I am still pretty happy with this LCD display in 2020. Now, one area where you're not going to be having a trade-off is in the speakers, and while I do use AirPods Pro a lot, there are times when I'm just walking around my house or getting ready in the morning where I'll just use my phone speakers. And this includes times where I'm in my car and I'm playing something on my phone and I haven't properly connected to a Bluetooth speaker, and I've been listening to, say, something like a podcast for the majority of my drive, and only at the end of the trip do I notice that my phone wasn't connected to the proper Bluetooth speakers. So these speakers do get plenty loud and they sound really good for phone speakers. Now, I'm sure another area where people have questions is the durability after a prolonged period of time, and my iPhone 11 has held up extremely well. Apple claims that this is the strongest glass ever in an iPhone, and while I don't recall dropping this phone from any crazy heights, the overall design has held up with no scuffs or dents on the aluminum framing, or cracks on the front or rear display. With that being said, I have noticed a few hairline scratches on the front of the display. The tougher Apple makes their glass, the more prone they are to scratching. So while these scratches aren't really that deep, I do notice them when the display is off. And while the iPhone 11 has been pretty durable, you still might want to put a case on it, which is why you should check out our sponsor for this video, ESR. So ESR sent over a dual pack of cases from their Air Armor lineup, a clear case which really shows off those iPhone 11 colors, and a more matte clear case which offers a super comfortable grip that won't slip out of your hand. Both cases have advanced protection for your iPhone 11, including military-grade air guard corners which offer advanced shock absorption to protect your iPhone from falls. The flexible but durable TPU frame makes these cases super easy to put on and take off compared to some of the more rigid clear cases from other manufacturers. Like I mentioned, the iPhone 11's display is prone to scratches, so these cases also feature raised edges to prevent your iPhone 11 screen from rubbing up against surfaces that can cause scratches. And what I really like about these cases is that even though they do offer advanced protection, both of these cases are still relatively slim and not at all bulky, making them easy to slip in or take out of your pocket. And if you're buying a nice iPhone 11 with all of those different color choices, you're really going to want a clear case to show off those colors. So if you're interested in grabbing an ESR case for either your iPhone 11 or your iPhone 11 Pro or really any other phone out there, be sure to check out the link in the description, and thank you so much to ESR for sponsoring this video. So as we move on, we're starting to notice a pattern here between the iPhone 11 and the iPhone 11 Pro, and that the main differences between these phones aren't really too many, and that really does come with performance as well. Now, one of the great things about the iPhone 11 is that it packs the same hardware as the Pro model, a powerful A13 chip that after 4 months of use doesn't seem to be slowing down at all. This means that everything you do on this phone is speedy, animations are smooth, and processing photos or video is done in a snap. It also means that you can enjoy mobile gaming like Call of Duty on the highest video and frame rate settings, or play the large number of titles in Apple Arcade. The iPhone 11 does come with 3 GB of RAM compared to the Pro's 4 GB of RAM, but the 11 also has a lower resolution display, meaning that RAM management between both devices should be about the same. I have definitely noticed this and really don't see apps refreshing faster on the 11 versus the Pro model. They're about the same in my observation. And despite some nasty iOS 13 bugs with RAM management, on the latest iOS 13.3, RAM management has never been better for me. And that includes things like playing a YouTube video just before I go to bed, then falling asleep, maybe opening up some other applications like Twitter or Safari in the morning, and then when I go back into the YouTube app, the video playback is preserved in RAM and I can continue right where I left off. In fact, in my initial reviews of the iPhone 11 and the iPhone 11 Pro, and in conversations on my podcast Gadgetcast, link in the description, I talked about how iOS 13 had some bugs and performance issues that weren't around in iOS 12. And as of the making of this updated review, I have to say that Apple has fixed a lot of problems here, and the overall experience in iOS 13.3 has been relatively stable and bug-free. So if you've watched any of my previous videos and were scared off by the performance or bugs in iOS 13, I really don't think you need to be afraid of iOS 13.3. So if that was holding you up from buying a new iPhone 11, or even if that was making you stay on iOS 12, I think most of the issues at this point are pretty much sorted out. And further iOS 13 updates have also fixed pain points in areas like the camera app, where you can now change the resolution or frame rate by tapping in the top right corner without having to dig into the settings. Speaking of camera upgrades, since the past 4 months, I've had plenty of time to use the new 2-camera system, as well as test out upgrades that previously weren't available at launch. The wide-angle camera on the iPhone 11 remains just as good as my first review, if not better, thanks to the addition of Deep Fusion technology, which increases the sharpness in medium light scenarios. This gives the iPhone 11 kind of 3 photography modes: Smart HDR for bright, vivid scenes like outdoor landscapes, Deep Fusion, usually in indoor settings with a moderate amount of lighting where the iPhone can stitch together each photo and increase overall sharpness of the photo, and of course the new night mode, which, as you would guess, works at night to brighten up what available light is in the scene, but also does a good job of still making it look like a photo that was taken at night. All of these modes do well on their own, and I love that they toggle on automatically, taking the burden off the user to make sure they are in the right camera mode. And the only thing I would really change at this point is to just give some sort of status indicator that the deep fusion technology is being used for photos. I should also mention the ultra wide angle camera, which remains a useful tool for capturing extended views and works great when you have plenty of lighting. Unfortunately, the photo quality does diminish quite quickly when you're not in ideal lighting situations because of the much slower f2.4 aperture. And the lack of night mode or deep fusion on the ultra wide is something I hope Apple fixes for a future iPhone 12. And the iPhone 11's video quality is superb and remains unrivaled even after 4 months of use. And comes with a wide range of shooting options with up to 4K at 60 frames per second and the versatility of a wide and ultra wide angle lens, which makes this a really helpful tool for shooting video on the go. If you see videos of me on this channel in an outdoor location, they were probably shot on either the iPhone 11 or the iPhone 11 Pro. I should also mention that my battery life on the iPhone 11 has been pretty good, with around 6 hours and 30 minutes to 7 hours of screen on time on average. I should mention after 4 months of use though, the battery health setting has degraded a little bit to 99%. Okay, so the iPhone 11 in 2020. Should you still be purchasing this phone, especially with the rumored iPhone 12 redesign on the lineup, which is also going to support 5G? Well, if you're in the market for a phone now, I still think the iPhone 11 is a great choice, which starts at $700 for the 64GB model. Again, like in all my reviews, I do recommend that you bump up the storage to 128GB for only an additional $50 more. And with a good design, great performance, great battery life, and some excellent cameras, I still think that the iPhone 11 is worth it in 2020, especially if you are coming from a much older iPhone and you just can't wait for the iPhone 12 any longer. All right, hopefully this video helped you out, and if it did, make sure you leave me a like. If you want to see more from my channel, make sure you're subscribed. Also, be sure to let me know what you think of the iPhone 11 in the comments below. Do you still think that it's worth it in 2020? Also, be sure to check out our sponsor for this video, ESR, and the link in the description. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.